If you were getting ready to build a house, like a home you plan to live in for the rest of your life, a place where you wanted to feel totally secure.
Right, your forever home.
Exactly. You would never, ever pour the concrete foundation for that house on top of a frozen lake. You just wouldn't do it.
I mean, that would be a terrible real estate decision.
It really would. Because you know that spring is eventually going to come, you know the ice is absolutely guaranteed to melt, and the moment it does, everything you spent your life building is just going to sink into the freezing water.
Yeah, it's inevitable.
But the crazy thing is, emotionally, we do this every single day. We build our entire sense of self-worth and security on the frozen lake of other people's approval, banking on these temporary conditions to hold us up permanently.
Oh, absolutely. We do it constantly.
So today, we are taking a deep dive into a 400-year-old Sikh text that provides the ultimate blueprint for getting off the ice. We're exploring a beautifully profound piece of spiritual philosophy to find a genuine antidote to some of our most exhausting modern anxieties.
And it really is exhausting, isn't it?
It really is. Specifically, we're looking at the dread we carry around power, the endless pursuit of wealth, and our draining reliance on human approval.
It's a text that speaks directly to the absolute burnout of modern life. If you feel totally drained by the endless cycle of keeping up appearances, or if you're burning out trying to secure the favor of people who hold leverage over you.
Like a boss or a social circle.
Exactly, or even just the algorithm or the culture at large. This composition offers a completely different architectural plan for your mind.
So our grounding source today is a composition by Guru Arjan Dev Ji, the fifth Sikh guru. You can find this on page 608 of the Sikh scriptures, the Guru Granth Sahib.
Yeah, and to really understand the atmosphere of this piece, we have to look at how it's musically framed. It's written in rag Sorat'h.
Right, and for those unfamiliar, the Sikh scriptures are organized by rags, which are the specific classical musical frameworks designed to evoke a very particular psychological and emotional state in the listener.
That musical context is so vital. Rag Sorat'h is traditionally performed at night, and it's specifically designed to evoke a feeling of profound calm.
Like a winding down from the day.
Exactly. A slight detachment from the chaotic hustle of the day, and a deep yearning for ultimate truth. So before the first word is even sung or spoken, your nervous system is being guided away from the noise of the world.
It's pointing you toward a quiet, reflective stillness. And the composition presents this deeply serene, yet highly confrontational tension.
It really does pull no punches.
On one side, it exposes the total illusion of human power. And on the other, it points toward the liberating reality of divine self-sufficiency.
Because to find that true peace, the text suggests we first have to shine a really harsh light on where we mistakenly try to find it.
Right, and it opens with this incredibly stark, uncompromising question. It asks, who should I ask? Who should I worship?
And then it drops this heavy, inevitable realization. Whoever appears to be the greatest of the great shall ultimately be mixed with the dust.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because it explicitly asks why anyone should praise the poor, helpless man or feel subservient to him.
Calling the greatest of the great a poor, helpless man is a massive inversion of how we normally view society.
It really is. I mean, think about the modern ecosystem of networking and influence. We spend immense amounts of energy trying to get proximity to executives, billionaires, politicians.
Thought leaders, all of them.
Yeah, we obsess over their opinions because we assume their resources give them a shield against the harshness of the world.
What's fascinating here is how the text powerfully dismantles that human hierarchy. We do that because our evolutionary survival instinct is kind of misfiring.
Like we're seeing them as the leader of the pack.
Exactly. When we look at a powerful CEO or a well-connected influencer, our brains perceive them as the alpha of the tribe. We subconsciously think that if we can just earn their favor, we'll be safe.
We project this false sense of permanence onto their temporary social status.
Right, but the guru looks right past that fragile, man-made societal structure and zooms out to the ultimate, inescapable reality of human existence.
Which is our shared mortality.
Exactly. The text labels these seemingly invincible figures as poor, helpless men because, regardless of their net worth or how many people report to them, they're completely powerless over the fundamental constraints of existence.
They can't grant you true salvation. They can't give you lasting internal peace.
No, they can't. If you are terrified of the unknown or struggling with the grief and the temporary nature of life, the most powerful human being on earth is utterly helpless to fix that for you.
A billionaire might be able to buy you a private jet or pay off your mortgage, but they cannot buy you a single ounce of genuine peace of mind when you're lying awake at 3 a.m.
That 3 a.m. anxiety doesn't care about your bank account.
It really doesn't. Relying on them for your fundamental sense of security is like trying to power a high-voltage machine by plugging a power strip into itself.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
The circuit is closed, there's no actual energy source, and eventually the whole system just dies. You are begging for permanence from an entity that is entirely impermanent.
And the mathematics of that dynamic guarantee anxiety. When you realize that the person you are twisting yourself into knots to please is just as fragile as you are.
Just as frightened and just as temporary.
Yeah, the illusion of their authority just shatters.
But, if we accept that even the most powerful humans ultimately turn to dust, we're left with a massive void.
It's a scary realization.
Yeah, because the desire for security isn't a character flaw, it's a basic human need. If we can't anchor ourselves to human power, where are we supposed to find stability?
And that's where the text moves from the fragility of man to the permanence of the divine. It points to the fearless, formless Lord, the destroyer of fear,
Who, it says, bestows all comforts and the 9 treasures.
It draws a really sharp contrast between human wealth and divine wealth. It states, "The Lord, the giver of peace, bestows such wealth that it can never be exhausted."
And the speaker concludes that thought by declaring, "Your gifts alone satisfy me."
It's a total paradigm shift from seeking physical accumulation to building a spiritual foundation. The text is urging the listener to stop chasing the currency of the world.
And start tapping into the currency of the Creator. But here's where it gets really interesting, because I want to look critically at the phrasing here.
Okay, let's hear it.
How a modern listener interprets wealth and 9 treasures might actually lead them down the wrong path.
Oh, I see what you mean.
It almost sounds like a cosmic lottery ticket. Like, follow this specific spiritual path, and the universe will hand you an ultimate literal treasure chest that solves all your earthly problems.
Right, like God is just going to drop a bag of gold on your doorstep.
Exactly. Because a massive, inexhaustible bank account sounds like it would bestow a lot of comfort. How do we differentiate this inexhaustible wealth from just having unlimited worldly resources?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, misinterpreting that imagery is the most common trap in spiritual philosophy. We have to look closely at the mechanical difference between physical wealth and the spiritual wealth.
Because physical wealth operates on a deficit model.
Exactly. It very often breeds paranoia and creates a whole new set of dependencies. When you acquire massive physical resources, your internal anxiety doesn't vanish, it just mutates.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you stop worrying about making rent, but you start worrying about the stock market crashing.
Or people stealing your assets, or inflation destroying your net worth. You need the market to stay stable. You need security systems.
And crucially, physical wealth rarely cures the psychological desire for more.
The hunger remains, it just scales up in proportion to your bank account.
Yeah.
You bought the luxury car, now you want the yacht.
The finish line keeps sprinting away from you. The wealth itself can be exhausted by endless spending, and the fear of losing it never actually leaves your nervous system.
But the spiritual wealth described here, this inexhaustible wealth provided by the fearless Lord, it operates on a completely different psychological mechanic.
How so?
True abundance in the spiritual context isn't about acquiring every physical object in the world. It's about reaching an internal state where your need for anything more is permanently extinguished.
Wow. So the wealth isn't having everything, the wealth is needing nothing.
Yes, it is the wealth of absolute, unshakable contentment. When the text says, "Your gifts alone satisfy me," it's describing a state where you are so deeply fulfilled by your connection to the divine that worldly gains and losses no longer dictate your emotional state.
Because a bank account can be drained.
A pristine reputation can be destroyed by a single algorithm update or a malicious rumor.
Right. But the internal peace that comes from connection to the fearless, formless Lord cannot be spent, it cannot be stolen, and it doesn't fluctuate with a bad economy.
It's a foundational security that does not rely on external conditions.
Recognizing that distinction is vital, but we have to talk about application. This isn't just abstract poetry. The text provides a specific methodology for accessing this inexhaustible wealth.
And it outlines the exact psychological results you can expect.
The source instructs the mind to chant the name, worship the name night and day, and to listen to the teachings of the holy saints, which refers to the Guru's Bani, the divine word.
We really need to clearly define name here.
Yeah, because to an uninitiated listener, chanting the name sounds like just repeating a magic word over and over until you feel better.
Right, and name is one of the most foundational concepts in Sikh philosophy. It translates poorly if we just call it a name.
What does it actually mean?
Name refers to the divine essence, the permeating spirit, the ultimate truth and identity of the creator that exists within everything. Chanting or meditating on the name isn't mindless verbal repetition.
It's an active, focused, cognitive, and spiritual practice.
Exactly. It's a deliberate recentering of your consciousness. When you meditate on the name, you are actively reminding your nervous system of your eternal identity.
You're shifting your locus of control from the temporal, chaotic world where everything dies and decays to the eternal, formless reality.
You are intentionally interrupting the brain's default rumination cycle.
And the results the text promises from this specific practice are massive. It says, "The Lord satisfies his hunger, and all fear of death will be dispelled," ultimately resulting in being absorbed in celestial peace.
Let's unpack the idea of satisfying the hunger.
Yeah, because in our daily lives, we operate on a dopamine cycle. We feel a hunger, desire for validation, a need to buy something, an ambition for a promotion, and we try to cure that hunger by feeding it.
But feeding a desire just reinforces the neural pathway of the craving.
We treat the symptom while actively strengthening the disease. It's like trying to cure a severe mosquito bite by frantically scratching it.
Right. For a fraction of a second, scratching feels like relief.
But mechanically, you are just damaging the skin, releasing more histamines, and guaranteeing that it's going to itch 10 times worse a minute later.
That's a perfect analogy. What the text is suggesting is that meditating on the name, connecting to the guru's word, acts as a systemic cure.
It doesn't just give you the thing you were craving. It applies a healing salve that removes the itch entirely.
You no longer have the desperate urge to scratch. You are completely whole without needing to consume anything external.
You step entirely off the hamster wheel of craving and temporary relief.
But this raises an important question because the second result mentioned is perhaps the most radical psychological shift a human being can experience.
Dispelling the fear of death.
Exactly. Consider what mechanically happens to a person's life when their deepest, most primal fear is removed.
It alters the entire foundation of how you make decisions. I mean, from an evolutionary standpoint, the fear of death is the root code running underneath almost all of our other daily anxieties.
It really is. Think about it. Why do we stay up late stressing over a slightly critical email from a boss? Because the boss controls our livelihood, which buys food and shelter, which sustains our physical survival.
And why does social rejection or public embarrassment feel so physically painful?
Because thousands of years ago, being cast out of the tribe meant you were going to starve or be eaten by a predator. Our brains literally equate human disapproval with physical death.
The guru's methodology short-circuits that evolutionary bug. If you, through deep spiritual practice, realize that your true essence is the name, that you are a piece of the eternal, formless creator, the fear of your physical body's expiration begins to dissolve.
Your identity is no longer tied to the meat and bones that will eventually turn to dust.
And if you are no longer fundamentally terrified of death, you are permanently liberated from the fear of human opinions.
Because what leverage does that poor, helpless man, the executive, the social media critics, the powerful politician, actually have over you?
Their ultimate threat, which is destroying your earthly life or status, has completely lost its teeth.
That fearless state is the direct mechanical pathway to the celestial peace the text describes. It's not the peace of a monk hiding in a cave ignoring the world.
No, it is the peace of walking directly through the fire of the modern world while being fundamentally untouchable by its deepest threats.
Attaining a state where you are totally fearless, completely unbothered by human favor, and spiritually self-sufficient. It sounds powerful.
Very powerful.
But I have to admit, to a modern ear, it could also sound incredibly cold or isolating.
Like you're shutting yourself off.
Yeah, like you're trying to become an unfeeling stone fortress on top of a mountain, completely disconnected from everyone else.
But the final lines of the text reframe the entire tone of this journey. It's not presented as a lonely, stoic discipline where you just tough it out.
It's framed as a deeply intimate, loving relationship.
The tone shift in the final stanza is breathtaking. It brings all of this high-level cosmic philosophy down to a beautifully personal, deeply vulnerable level.
The text uses the metaphor of a child and a parent. The writer speaks directly to the divine, saying, "I am just a poor child. What can I do?"
And then asks the creator to protect and preserve your servant Nanak. Be kind to him, like a father to his son.
It closes by acknowledging the boundless compassion of God, stating, "You are kind and compassionate to all beings."
The contrast here is so striking.
So what does this all mean? Because earlier, the text challenged us, asking why we should ever feel subservient to a poor, helpless man. It frames subservience as foolish.
Right. It warned us against it.
But here, the speaker actively embraces the role of a poor child who throws their hands up and says, "What can I do?"
Yeah.
How is this total surrender to the divine any different from the toxic subservience to humans we were just warned against?
That tension is the emotional core of the entire composition. The difference lies in the ultimate nature of the two types of surrender.
Okay, how so?
Surrendering to another human being, making them your ultimate authority, sacrificing your values for their approval, living in terror of their judgment, is deeply degrading.
You are bowing to equal dust.
Exactly. You are diminishing your own divine spark to inflate the ego of someone who is just as lost in the illusion of the world as you are. It creates a toxic, anxiety-ridden power dynamic based entirely on a lie.
It's a transaction where you trade a piece of your inherent dignity for a false sense of security.
But surrendering to the Creator, the compassionate Father, is not a transaction, and it is not degrading. It is fundamentally elevating.
I am just a poor child. What can I do?
When it says that, it isn't an expression of worthlessness. It's an expression of profound, clear-eyed realism about the limitations of the human ego.
Because modern hustle culture trains us to believe that we must be the absolute masters of our universe.
We're told that if we just optimize our routines, network with the right people, and manifest hard enough, we can control every outcome in our lives.
Which is an incredibly heavy 100-pound backpack to carry around every day. It's exhausting pretending we're in control of a universe that is so clearly beyond our grasp.
Surrender, in this spiritual context, is simply the act of taking that backpack off and putting it down.
That's such a relief to even think about.
When you finally acknowledge that you cannot defeat death on your own, and you cannot orchestrate the entire universe, you experience the ultimate relief. It is a protective surrender.
It allows you to rest securely in divine grace.
In the exact same way, a toddler rests securely in the arms of a loving parent. The child isn't worried about the state of the global economy or paying the mortgage or what the neighbors think of them.
They trust implicitly that the parent has the broader context handled.
This spiritual surrender removes the crushing anxiety of needing to control the uncontrollable and replaces it with a profound, unshakable trust in a compassionate Creator.
We have journeyed through some truly life-altering terrain today. We started by looking at the exhausting reality of building our foundation on the frozen lake of human approval.
And we saw how chasing the favor of mortal giants, who will inevitably turn to dust, is a mathematical guarantee of anxiety and collapse.
We explored the alternative, tapping into the inexhaustible spiritual wealth of the fearless Lord, a wealth defined not by having everything, but by extinguishing the deep internal hunger for more.
We also looked at the mechanics of how to get there. By meditating on the name and absorbing the divine word, a person can fundamentally rewire their nervous system,
Shifting their identity away from their temporary physical body and toward the eternal.
which dispels the primal fear of death, making them immune to the threats and manipulations of the worldly hierarchy.
And finally, we saw that this profound independence isn't about becoming a cold, unfeeling stoic. It's about finding warm, intimate rest in the protective embrace of the Creator.
Trading the heavy burden of our own egos for the peaceful trust of a child with a loving parent.
The overarching realization here is beautiful in its paradox. True, unshakable independence from the stress and demands of this temporary world is only achieved through complete, profound spiritual dependence on the eternal.
It all comes down to where you choose to pour your foundation.
As you move through the rest of your day, or prepare to go to sleep tonight, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. If all human power ultimately turns to dust, exactly as this 400-year-old text reminds us, what is one urgent expectation, one lingering fear of judgment, or one desperate demand for approval from another person in your life right now that you can simply choose to let go of? Let the ice melt. Stop trying to freeze the lake yourself and discover where your real foundation has been waiting all along.